This morning, we are navigating through the frightening and dangerous landscape of domestic abuse, and we're looking at it through the lens of this memoir. In the Dream House is Carmen Maria Machado's account of a relationship gone bad, and in it, she's examining her own harrowing relationship with a charismatic but volatile woman, unpacking the emotional, psychological, and at times physical abuse she experienced. Carmen Maria Machado joins us this morning in studio. Good to have you here with us.
Thanks for having me.
Talk to me about the writing process, about going back to reliving these events, having to describe them, put them on paper in these different vignettes.
It was really hard. I was actually like out in the wilderness, like trying to sort of, like write the book that I needed to write. And yeah, it was really difficult. It was like going back and confronting this old version of myself that I thought had gone away, this like very young 20s version. And then realizing that she had not gone away and she was there and I had things to say to her.
Wow. A lot of survivors have said to me that it is something else to try to write it down on paper. It's one thing to talk about it, it's another thing to write it.
Yeah, well, and I find writing is useful. Like, I feel like I think really well on the page and it helps me organize my thoughts. So in that way, it was sort of helpful. But yeah, it is really different than speaking about it in person.
What is the title, what is the Dream House, and how did you come up with that title?
So the Dream House is a home that my ex-girlfriend lived in that I spent a lot of time in while we were dating. And yeah, I was really interested in this idea of a dream house, like a space that's like idealistic. I talk in the book about how in the queer community, we sort of have this idealized vision of lesbian relationships and sort of the irony and the strangeness of that. And also dreaming is like this state of, your body is in one place and your mind is in another. And I feel like that divide, just really like that sort of liminal like space, felt really accurate to me for like the process of being in that relationship and writing the book. So it just felt like a really good title.
One of the chapters in this book is called Dream House as Choose Your Own Adventure. Yes. The reader gets drawn into how cyclical and inescapable abuse can feel. Tell me about that process.
Well, so I, like many people, loved Choose Your Own Adventure novels as a kid. Yeah, and I was really interested in the way in which, as a structure, it like acts as if it pretends like there's actually choice, but there's not, right? Like somebody else is calling the shots. Like some author is giving you 2 sets or 3 sets of like artificial choices that you have to follow. And it felt like a really sort of appropriate way of like creating an effect for the reader of like being stuck, being trapped, because you can get trapped in the chapter. Like if you follow the directions, you can get stuck, or if you break the rules, if you like go to a page you don't belong to, the book will yell at you. So the book, I want a chapter where the book felt sort of as hostile and unfriendly to the reader as being in that relationship felt. And so that, and I feel like it actually ended up being a really sort of beautiful structure to kind of capture that feeling. It
really helps you to get a sense of that, as you say, inescapability of being in this cycle. Sometimes people will say, well, why don't you just leave if it's so bad?
Yeah.
And it explains why sometimes you can't.
Yeah, exactly.
We talk a lot about representation here on Your Morning and the importance of being seen and of being heard as a process of being understood. You write, I enter into the archive that domestic abuse between partners who share a gender identity is both possible and not uncommon, and that it can look something like this. I speak into that silence. Talk to me about the importance of writing down a story that deals with domestic abuse in a same-sex relationship.
Well, what happened was like when I was sort of recovering from this relationship, I was looking for narratives that sort of would reflect some quality of what I had experienced, and I couldn't find any. And I was like, that seems so strange to me because like gay people have been around for a very long time, and like how is it that these stories haven't been sort of committed to the page? And and I just decided that it was a thing that I wanted to try to like enter into the space, because if we don't give people context for understanding their experiences, they won't understand what's happened to them. And in the same way that like when I was young, I was like a teenager who like didn't really understand that like I was queer, because even though I wanted to kiss my best friend, I thought like, oh, we're just really good friends, because like I didn't understand that like that's what it meant to be queer. And so in the same way, like when I was in the context of this, when I was in this relationship, like I didn't have context, I didn't have other narratives to show me like this is what's happening, like even though
this is abusive.
Yeah, even though this doesn't fit the thing you're imagining, it is actually this thing. And so I feel like, it's important to give people context for themselves and their experiences. And that it seemed really important to me.
Carmen, thank you for coming on today. The book is called In the Dream House. Thanks for watching. If you like this, be sure to subscribe here.
And you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.